If you're considering retiring soon, stick around because in this video, I'm going to go over the top 10 things that you need to consider while picking your ideal retirement destination. Hey there, my name is Chichi Aguoji. I'm a New York-based real estate agent that specializes in helping seniors and retirees sell their homes and find the best locations to retire. In this video, I'm going to share the top 10 things that I think every retiree and soon-to-be retiree should consider when thinking about their ideal retirement destination. Now, some of these items might seem like no-brainers to you. Others might give you food for thought. Either way, stick around until the very end because number 10 is without a doubt my favorite. Number 1, finances. Now this is one of those no-brainer items. So finances is important because wherever you go, you want to make sure it's well suited for your financial situation. Finances covers everything from income tax rates to sales tax rates and everything in between. So whether you're living on your Social Security benefits, your pension income, or investment income, you want to make sure you choose a location that allows you to maximize these sources of income as best as possible. But one big sticking point is the fact that every state, every city, every locale has different tax laws. Some states will tax your pension, some states won't. Some states you'll have to pay taxes on any vehicles you own, in some states you won't. So do your due diligence to make sure whatever location you choose is really the optimal and the best location for your financial situation. Number 2, healthcare. Now this item really pushes you to answer the question, how close do you want to be to a hospital? Given the body's propensity to illness and ailments as we get older, it might make sense for you to live close to a hospital in retirement. Now, if you're a retiree who's young at heart, you may not think this is a real important item. However, if you're someone who needs to go in for routine medical treatments or checkups, then this is definitely something that you want to make sure you check off your list when it comes to selecting your ideal retirement location. So typically what some retirees will do is state that they want their ideal location to be within a 5 or 10-mile radius of the closest hospital, or that they want to be within 30 minutes of the closest hospital. Number 3, recreation. Now this is something that I think oftentimes gets overlooked when anyone is considering their ideal retirement destination. And oftentimes it gets overlooked because retirees will select a location based on the best vacation that they had. This isn't a horrible way to go about selecting your ideal retirement location. It's just not the most practical way, because how you spend your time in 2 weeks in any given location really isn't indicative of how you'll likely spend your time in that same place for the rest of your life. For instance, Florida has what's known as both a touristy season and an off season. If you visit Florida during a touristy season, your experience in Florida will be very different from visiting during the off season. Restaurants are typically closed, there's just not too much business, there's not that much going on. So you really want to make sure you have a strong grasp of all of the activities that will be available to you throughout the entire year, as opposed to any specific part of the year. Something else under recreation that often gets overlooked is how you make new friends. Now, believe it or not, moving to a new destination, you may not know anyone there. So you may have to get out of your comfort zone and introduce yourself to new people and make new friends. So you really want to make sure that you have a strong sense of self. And by that I mean understanding whether or not you are someone who's more shy and more of an introvert as opposed to someone who's more outgoing and more of an extrovert, because that is going to really help you dictate what types of activities that you'll need in order to engage with new people in your ideal retirement location. Number 4, access to transportation and travel. Now, while some retirees might adore the idea of being able to retire in some remote destination, you still need to have access to transportation, and you still need to be able to travel both within your new community and outside of your new community. We know that as we get older, it might prove more and more difficult for you to be able to drive independently. So having some foresight and thinking ahead and saying to yourself, well, I want to make sure that I'm in a destination that allows for public modes of transportation, so that in the event that I am not able to drive myself to a destination or to a location, at least I'll know that there's access to other modes of transportation to allow me to get from point A to point B. Another thing to think about under travel is if you do end up retiring to a destination that's further away from your loved ones, you may want to make sure that you're living within close proximity to an airport, whether it's a domestic airport or an international airport. Because ideally, this would allow for you to be able to hop on a flight and be able to go visit your loved ones at the drop of a dime. Number 5, proximity to friends and family. Now, this is actually, I think, one of the top items that most seniors and retirees consider when they're choosing their ideal retirement destination. Because believe it or not, one of the top things that actually dictates where seniors and retirees will live is where their friends, their family, their loved ones already live. So oftentimes a retiree will decide to retire to a new location simply because they have a friend who recently retired to that same destination. Now, other times, a retiree might choose to retire in place, so staying put, as opposed to moving elsewhere, simply because their home is within close proximity to their children, their grandchildren, and so they'll have easy access to visit, or in the case of precaution, they'll be able to call someone if there's any issues related to safety in their home. Number 6, crime and safety. Now, this is something that I think is not really talked about much when people consider the ideal locations for them to retire. This is important because we have seen an increase in crimes in most areas of the country, specifically in New York. The world as a whole strikes me as just overall less safe than it used to be. And there's also a gradation or a large variation across the states in terms of the different laws that are being applied and that people are being governed under in various states. So it's really important that you do your research and do your due diligence to ensure that you not only understand what your present crime rate is in your current neighborhood, but that you also know how to compare where you would like to move to your current neighborhood. And ideally what you want is a location that's just as safe, or if not more safe, than your current residence or community. Number 7, food and water access. Now, by food, I really mean type of food, because I do know some seniors and retirees who swear by Trader Joe's, for example, and will refuse to retire at any location that does not allow them to frequent Trader Joe's. So if you're one of those types of people and you know that you can't live without a particular food item, make sure you do your due diligence, make sure you do your research to ensure that you'll be able to access that particular item at any of your potential retirement destinations. Now, another item to consider is water access, and this is something I don't hear too many people sounding the alarm about, but essentially there are some Western US states that don't really have access to clean water. They're experiencing a shortage of water, and it's so bad that they have to get water from other states within that region or within the vicinity. So I think that it's incredibly important for you to ensure that wherever you select has access to clean water, because as a retiree, you might be dealing with a lot of stresses in life, and there's no need to add to your stress level by living in a location that does not have access to water. Number 8, weather. Now this appears to be a slippery slope for some. Only if you don't visit your anticipated location at various points throughout the year. You want to make sure you understand the temperature, the humidity levels, whether the location is seasonal throughout the year or if it's just one season. Either way, my recommendation would be for you to visit the location at various points throughout the year to really internalize and understand what it's like to live there and what the temperatures feel like. And once you found what you think is your ideal location, I would recommend you take it a step further and renting out a spot and staying there maybe 2 to 3 months before you actually decide to make your final move. Number 9, housing. Now this pertains to both the cost and the availability of housing. Now on the cost side, you want to make sure that you're calculating the all-in cost. So not just the cost to purchase the home, but how much is it going to cost you to live in the home when you look at all of your ideal locations and pick the one that makes the most sense to you. When it comes to availability of homes, you just want to make sure that there are homes on the market readily available for you to purchase. Now, we just came out of a seller's market. In some areas, we're still in a seller's market. In some areas, we're not. This is why it makes the most sense for you to work with a reputable realtor, someone who can help you put your best foot forward if you will be making offers on homes at a destination. Now, you stuck around until the very end of the video, so thank you. I did say that number 10 was my favorite, so let's get into it. So number 10, as you're thinking about retirement and all of the excitement that kind of builds up to your final day of work, one thing that's really not discussed often is your purpose. Now, just think about it. You've shown up day after day, year after year to work. You've had a destination, you've had a routine, you've had a schedule, you've likely had deliverables, you've had someone telling you what to do, sometimes maybe even telling you how to do it. Now you're in a stage in your life where all of that just kind of phases out. There's no overseer of your time, if you will. You are the overseer of your time. So making that transition, I think, is something that some seniors and retirees struggle with. And at the outset, you might feel a little lost. You might feel a bit of a cultural shock. You might feel confused. I mean, how are you supposed to spend your time? So something I read about recently is known as ikigai, which is Japanese for your reason for being. And I read this article which helps you to unpack or uncover your ikigai, or your purpose, your reason for being. So what I want to do with number 10 is walk you through how you would be able to determine what your purpose is by looking at this technique that's utilized in Japan. So to do so, the first thing we want to do is we want to draw our 4 circles, and they're going to overlap. And we're going to label each of these 4 circles in the main areas. So for the first one, we're going to call it what you love. The second one, we're going to call it what you're good at. The third one, you're going to call it what you can be paid for. And the fourth one, you're going to call it what the world needs. Okay, now we get to the fun part, because not only are we going to be able to label the main sections of the circles, we're also going to be able to label some of where these circles overlap or intersect. Okay, so where the first circle and the second circle overlap, that's what you call your passion, because this is something you love and something you're good at. Now moving on to where the second and third circle overlap, that's what you call your profession, because this is something that you're both good at and something that you can be paid for. Now moving on to the next part, where the third and the fourth circle overlap, this is called a vocation. This is something that the world needs, but that you can also get paid to do. All right, now where the fourth and the first circle overlap, this is known as your mission. This is something that you love, but that the world also needs, right? So that's your mission. But where these circles all combine and all overlap in the very middle, this is known as your ikigai. This is known as your purpose, your reason for being. So it's essentially something you love, something you're good at, something you can be paid for, and something the world needs. Now feel free to adjust or adopt, if you will, different sections to make it work for you. But I think this is a really great framework that anyone can use to really help them hone in and get some direction as to what they should be doing with themselves on a day-to-day basis. And I think some seniors and some retirees might really appreciate this framework. And so that's why I wanted to save that to number 10, finding your purpose in retirement. Now, if you're a senior or retiree and you would like some assistance with finding your ideal location to retire, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to work with you. All of my information is in the description below. All right, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed the video and you learned something new, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.